Tonight, Harley Quinn finds out that the Joker might actually be dead, and she takes it just as well as you can expect. The Ray spends his debut issue reminding the audience that yes, he is in fact completely naked. And Superboy gets really topical by burning down the Christmas tree in the New York Plaza. Oh boy. All that and more this week on the Not So New 52. Hello and welcome to episode 15 of the Not So New 52. I am your host, and I know I say this like pretty much every episode, but this episode has 16 comics, and I went over on time for pretty much every single one of them because I record those before I record this intro. So I'm not going to waste any time. I'm just going to tell you what's coming, and we're just going to move right into it. Okay? Cool? Great. This week, December 14th, 2011, held such fantastic comics as the number 4 issues of Batman and Robin, Batgirl, Batwoman, Superboy, Green Lantern, Mr. Terrific, Deathstroke, Grifter, Suicide Squad, Legion Lost, Demon Knights, Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E, Resurrection Man. Also, the number 3 issues of returning miniseries of My Greatest Adventure and The S.H.A.D E. And to complement The S.H.A.D E, we've got an issue 1 of The Ray, a new miniseries of a new hero, because we have to have 16 goddamn comics coming out this week. Alright, sound good? Let's get into comic book number 1. Batman and Robin number 4, written by Peter J. Tomasi, art by Patrick Gleason. We last left off with Robin getting caught by nobody, Batman coming in trying to save him, and nobody catching them both, and setting him up in some drive-in movie where he was going to show him something on the big screen. This issue picks up with what he's showing him on the big screen, and it's basically the exact same thing that's always said in these sort of comics for Batman, where it's like, hey, here's the Joker. The first time he committed a crime, and it looks like it's maybe not really the Joker, it's just like an actor stand-in, but it's supposed to represent them, so they're like, hey, here's the Joker committing a crime, and here's Two-Face and Poison Ivy and Bane and all them, and basically nobody just makes the point immediately where he's like, why are you letting these monsters live? Like, just kill them. They are causing so much pain and suffering out there. It is your duty to end them. And Batman's like, I'm not going to become one of them in order to beat them. And nobody's like, that's stupid. No, they are colorful and insane and giving themselves crazy names. That's you, in a nutshell. You literally are doing that. And he's like, look, I am dressed up as totally black, and I've literally taken the name of nobody. I do this just because it's the right thing to do, to kill them for the sake of the victims. And Batman's just like, look, I'm not going to waste myself explaining any of this to you. Like, you're never going to get it. I'm never going to join you. Get over it. And nobody's like, yeah, you're not going to join me, but Robin here will, because I've been watching him, and he is straight up messed up in the head. And all I got to do is take you out, and he's sure to join my side. And Batman's like, I don't think that's how that's going to work. And nobody just holds a knife to his throat and just like, he's been trained by the best, and you have literally let him down at every turn. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much how this is going to work. So, he reminisces. He's like, oh, we could have made such a good team, Batman. Oh, well, too bad that doesn't work out. Anyway, do you have any last words as he readies like a laser blast on him? And Batman's like, yeah, go ahead, Alfred. And Alfred, via remote control, piloting the Bat Jet, comes in and starts firing at nobody, hitting them multiple times with rubber bullets, they specifically say, so it doesn't immediately counteract the entirety of this comic. And Alfred's like, all right, I got him. I'm tracked on his heat signature. You take care of yourself, Batman. So he's giving chase to nobody throughout this giant open field, pretty much. Batman, he uses a piece of broken glass to cut through the ropes that were tying him together. He gets Robin up. Robin's still paralyzed from the last issue, and he just gives him a little tap on the forehead, and he's all better now. So then nobody realizes, like, oh, I should probably get some cover. So he shoots at this giant tanker that I guess is just here for some reason. It explodes in a giant fiery explosion. As such, it masks his heat signature, And Robin's like, do you think he's dead? And Batman's like, no, of course he's not. He masked his heat signature. He's out there planning his next move already. And we see that, yes, that is true. Cut to the Batcave. Everyone's getting patched up. And Robin's like, hey, you better show me how to do that forehead thing, because that is super useful. And Batman's like, no, I'm not. If you miss it by that much, you will kill somebody. And I think you know enough ways to kill people, Damian. And it just evolves into an argument that basically comes down to Bruce is like, look, I know that I'm giving you orders. I don't feel like I'm asking for too much. And Damian's like, you're asking for way too much. I am literally like an adult. I am trained to be a killer and all that stuff. He's like, yeah, but you're 10. And all I'm asking for is like a little bit of respect here. And he's like, well, do you respect me? And Bruce is like, I don't even trust you, dude. Like, you have done nothing to earn that. I told you specifically, do not go out of the house, and you did that thing. And Damian's like, oh, I'm sorry, I need your permission to leave the house. He's like, you are 10. Yes, you do need that thing. And then we take a hard break real quick as Alfred interrupts him, and then we basically get into the backstory of Nobody. How his name is Morgan Ducard. He's the son of Henry Ducard. They trained together back during Batman's training years, and they were supposed to be this fantastic team, but then once they started turning into, blood stuff and, like, killing people, Batman took the heart out. So anyway, Robin's just like, oh, you should have told me about him, because then I would have known what was going on. He's like, you definitely would have still tried to leave tonight regardless. Like, that is not... Like, yes, I am your father, and you need to understand that I'm keeping some things for your own good. And Damian storms off, angry at Bruce. And Alfred's talking to Bruce, and he's like, you probably should have told him. And he's like, he might just confuse him and get him down a darker path. And Alfred's like, it might make things better. We should try that occasionally. So then we get Damian. He's outside. He's at Bruce's parents' graves, Thomas and Martha. And he's like, yeah, your son's kind of a dick. I'm not a fan. And there's fireflies everywhere, and he catches one and crushes it because he's just that kind of kid. And then the dog comes up, and he's finally taken a liking to the dog, and he decides to finally give it the name of Titus. And then we see that Nobody has managed to get nearby. He's not in the perimeter yet that Bruce set up to immediately kill him, but he is nearby enough to talk to Damian, and he's like, hey, I'm not gonna force you to hold back. I'm gonna let you be you if you just come and join me. Just saying, think about it. As he disappears into the dark, Damian grabs another firefly, crushes it. Darkness, end comic. I like it. It's good. It's a solid comic. It's a good look between Batman and Robin, or more specifically Bruce and Damian, and their relationship with each other and how it grows. Because that is honestly the central focus of the whole thing. It's just talking about, where people stand with these lines in the sand. I'm interested to see where it's going to go because, of course, we can't just have a whole issue of Damian being like, I'm thinking about joining him, but I'm still not gonna. I feel like at some point he is just going to do it. So, overall I'm going to give this a 7. The art's fantastic. I really do like it. It didn't have that much of a chance to shine in the middle bit, but it did a really good job in the first bit with the action scene of him outrunning the bat plane. So, good there. Writing-wise, it's just one of those, like, sit and talk about your morals issues. So, hit or miss there, but I like the way that they handle it. So, 7 for me. Looking forward to more. Batgirl number 4, written by Gail, Simone, art by Ardian, Syaf. We left off last issue with the whole thing with Nightwing and her telling him that she needs to do this alone, and it doesn't really tie into this issue at all. So this issue picks up with a dream sequence. Batgirl in costume is sitting in her wheelchair, and she's being reprimanded by herself, Barbara Gordon, out of costume, standing, and Barbara's basically just telling Batgirl, like, you have a fantastic life. Things have always been really, really good for you. You've got a good father, good friends, good home, and why do you deserve this miracle? Out of all the people here, why do you aren't what makes you so special? And it's basically just tearing her apart via survivor's guilt. She shoots up in bed, realizes that it is survivor's guilt, and she just is upset because it's been a year as of tonight that she got her legs back. So she walks out into the living room, and her roommate is sitting there, Alicia, staring at a Christmas tree, because apparently this is 2 days before Christmas Eve. So, yeah. And they're just sitting there, and they're talking for a little bit about, like, oh, how did you used to do Christmas back home in Singapore or whatever, and what was your Christmases like and stuff like that. And Alicia asked her what the best Christmas present she ever got was, and they said how, first off, she listed off on how her mom walked out when she was 12, and then a year ago tonight, her dad came home and said, hey, there's a treatment in South Africa. And that's all that was said, and then they, it's implied that she took it, she got her legs back, and now she's able to walk again. So she's reflecting on that, and Alicia is able to put two and two together. Like, oh, so that van I saw with the wheelchair ramp, that wasn't a family thing. That was your thing. And you still keep it a year later? And Batgirl's kind of getting overwhelmed, and she just rushes out the door. And she's like, I'm sorry, I just need to take some air. So she walks out. She puts on her Batgirl outfit, and it's just like, all right, well, I don't want to answer questions. I just kind of want to do the right thing tonight. I want to do something simple. So she comes across this group of, seems to be like homeless muggers or something like that, but they got a cell phone app that tells them exactly where Batman is based off of like sightings from other people. And they're like, look, Batman was spotted on the other side of town 2 minutes ago. So we're totally able to just mug this wealthy couple that are walking by and also say kill them. So that is explicitly said. So Batgirl drops down, and she's like, oh, well, it wasn't keeping track of me. And there's even a guy who's, like, looking through his phone, being like, there's no button for Batgirl. How am I supposed to track this in the app? But she just goes through, beats them all up, and she feels good that she did it. She feels good that she's able to do that. She's also going through this whole time saying how she remembers all the names that were on Mira's paper because of her eidetic memory. So once she beats up all the guys, she talks to the couple, and the couple are like, oh, thank you so much. Now we're fine. We're able to go see our kids again. Thank you. And that triggers it in Batgirl's head. She's like, got it. I know what I'm going to do. So she realizes that Mira's whole thing was his family, how he feels responsible for his family dying because of the car crash. So she knows his name. She just got all of, she took the note from in her head. She told the police, like, hey, here's all the people that are going to be targeted. Put them all under protective custody. Then she went to the graves of the guy and was like, hey, I told the police all the names. Your note is now completely useless. They'll be totally safe. If you want to come after me, though, because we all know I'm on your list, I'll be at the House of Mirrors in the Funtime Carnival or whatever. And she puts that all in a note on her child's grave, or on his child's grave. So they go to the House of Mirrors. Mirror busts in and sees Barbara's inside, and they're like, all right, here we go, final standoff time. And they start fighting, and Barbara's like, all right, just got a plan. I just have to make sure he doesn't get, to me. He can't actually get to me. And so she starts beating him up, drops a shoulder on him, but then he gets a few good swings in. It's your basic fight scene. The whole time she's just describing how the fight is, taking a toll on her, but she's also landing hits and whatever. She smashes up his mask, and then she's like, all right, cool. She ducks away and turns on a projector, which starts showing the news clippings and pictures of the car crash that he caused, just all over the mirrors, which are all reflecting back onto his outfit, which is itself mirrors. And because he's a little bit crazy, he's like, oh no, get it off me, it's all over me, ah. And so in his grief and terror or whatever, Batgirl lands the one punch she needs. She delivers the moral of look, good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people, but if a good thing happens to you, it's allowed to happen. Miracles happen to good people too. There you go. That's all they're saying, whether you deserve them or not. So she slaps the cuffs on Mirror, and then we cut back to later that night. She's, I guess, opening gifts with her roommate. She got her roommate a ceramic knife, and then her roommate got her some sort of statue thing. And they're happy to spend the night with each other when there's a knock at the door, and Barbara gets up and answers it, and it is her mother. Her actual mother is standing at the door saying, "Oh, don't you recognize me? I'm your mom." This felt like a really quick wrap-up. Like, it didn't... I don't know. It seems to me like nothing was particularly learned by Barbara in this to, like, justify the fact that, like, oh, now I know the plan. It's like, no, that's just... I understand it was more of a thing of self-growth. Like, she came to terms with the fact of, no, Mirror's wrong, and now I can defeat him. But, like, I don't know. For me, writing-wise, like, I like the overall arc. Assuming that Mirror is done, I like the overall arc. And the art is fine as well. I have no problem with that. My problem with the specific writing in this issue is the fact of, like, what changed? Like, she had her survivor's guilt. She's had that the whole time. She didn't really get over it until she was already in the fight. But then, like, what made the plan... Like, right now, she was like, oh, yes, those things I learned 2 issues ago. Now I can finally use them. It's like, if anything, it makes it feel like the last issue is completely unnecessary, if that makes any sense. So, overall, just judging this on its own is kind of hard, but I'm going to give it a 6.5, just because, I don't know, it just felt like there was maybe it was the whole arc as a whole. This one felt pretty fast, but the whole arc as a whole, it felt like there was a little bit of padding there that didn't need to be there. And I just have to take the points off on this one. So, yeah, 6.5. But, hey, her mom's back, so that's rife for soap opera drama. Batwoman number 4, written by W. Haden, Blackman, art by J.H. Williams III, who also helped on the writing. Left off last issue with Maggie and Kate sharing a kiss as Flamebird goes out on the town to beat up some bad guys, I guess. This issue picks up pretty much flawlessly from there, going exactly where you think it's going to go. It's a bit of a long sequence, so one half of it interspersed via black and white panels throughout in a very tasteful manner, mind you, is the Kate and Maggie love scene. And the other half of it, making up the majority in full color, is Flamebird coming across a gang, one of the gangs from like 2-3 issues ago. And she just comes in and she's just immediately trash talking. She's like, oh, what's that? Some gun racketeers? I'm Flamebird. I'm the best there is. I got like the whole Justice League on my phone. I've been beating people up since you've been in juvie. Like, she's just constantly trash talking these people. And then as she beats up basically most of the just low-level gang people there, La Llorona actually shows up and she's like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. You're in for some trouble now. And then she turns around and sees this giant man with a hook hand and terrifying speech bubbles saying, she's pretty bones. I'm going to play with them. And Flamebird's like, whatever, I'll take you down too. And she lands a few good hits on him, shoves his head in the sand, but then he just turns around and just one punches her, and she is immediately just off her game. He slashes her with the hook, and then almost immediately, like as soon as the fight starts, he just shoves the hook through her torso, and she's in shock. She's like, but that's not supposed to happen. And the hook man just walks off, leaving Flamebird to just bleed out in the snow as we get the climax of the love scene on the bottom panel. So pick up the next morning. Kate's waking up with Maggie, and they're like, oh, hey, it's morning already. So Maggie has to get into work, and she's still upset that she can't figure out any sort of lead on this La Llorona thing. And Kate's like, hey, you're a fantastic detective. I'm sure you'll figure it out. And she's like, well, yeah, I mean, I'm going to, because the only thing that's worse than telling those parents that I don't have any leads is giving up on this case. And then we see that Detective Chase came across the body of Flamebird, who is actually still alive. And she's like, cool, pick her up and let's bring her into the lab. We're going to take off that mask once we get her talking again. So then we cut to, I assume later that night, it's a whole day has passed, and Batwoman is talking to this woman who moonlights at the morgue, but her other side job is that she basically bandages up supervillains and any sort of like bad guys that come up. Like, she's just someone who provides medical care regardless of their moral standing. So Batwoman's using that as leverage of like, I'll try to make sure Batman doesn't come by to shut you down, but no promises. So tell me what you know about the mother of these two children, because they were the first ones. And apparently the mother, she reeked of gin as she investigated the bodies, and then maybe afterwards she was deported. They're not entirely sure. But the one dude who's like being operated on while the scene is going on, they say that her name is Maria, and she's the risen dead. So let me cut back over to Chase along with Flamebird and other people, and basically like, we can't get any sort of identity off her at all. The fingerprints have been scrubbed. There's no sort of dental records or anything like that. She is completely a ghost. And Chase is like, why is it everybody in the Bat family is able to do this? And they show a map of like everybody in the Bat family and how they just can't get any of them. But what they do have an idea of is that they, because of Flamebird going out as, I'm blanking on the name, but the dull gray outfit from 2 issues ago, Pleb, that was it. They know that this is the same girl. So they know she's related to Batwoman. So Chase comes in dressed as a doctor and is basically like, look, we can't save you. Like, you're going to die. I'm very sorry. If there's anyone that you want us to call, please tell us now. I don't want you to have to die alone. And Flamebird just very silently whispers Kate Kane. And Chase is immediately like, well, that ain't a coincidence. Let's round up the troops. So then we see Batwoman breaking into the apartment of where this Maria woman lived. There's a guy there, and he's asleep. He's woken up by Batwoman, and he basically tells her, like, look, she's dead. She died. She was my daughter. And after her children died, she killed herself via drowning out of grief. I didn't even know that I had grandchildren until I heard that she was dead, and now I've lost all of them. And it's just a sad sequence of panels, but Batwoman gets her answer that Maria did drown herself, and it was at the boathouse where she originally had that lead a while back. So she's got her ideas as to what happened. And we wrap up with Kate doing some research into occultish things and stuff like that, while Agent Chase is calling in Director Bones to Gotham, and he's like, hey, sorry I brought you into Gotham. I know you kind of hate it in here. And he's like, don't even mention it. You've got to lead on the Bat family. I will totally show up for that. And that is where we leave off. I like it. I really do. I think it's a good issue. The scene with Flamebird in the beginning is just haunting, because it is literally just gruesome the way that he's just tearing her apart. Absolutely awful. And then how it's juxtaposed with the sex scene, it's just bad. The rest of the issue, hit or miss for me. But that opening scene more than makes up for it. So I'm going to give this one a 7.5, actually. I was thinking 7, but I'm bumping up to the 7.5 just through rereading that scene. So yeah, fantastic issue. Very much looking forward to seeing. This actually, this trade only holds one more issue, so hopefully that's where the arc wraps up. We'll see what happens there. Superboy, number 4, written by Scott Lobdell, art by R.B. Silva. We left off last issue with Superboy kind of going rogue a little bit and went to go threaten the doctor known as Red, and she got super buff and started choking him out. This issue picks up immediately afterwards. Red is like, you came into my room and you threatened me, and she's throwing him down on the ground. And she's like, I cannot believe, after everything I've done for you, that you would stoop to this level. And basically Superman's like, oh yeah, everything you did for me because you made me into some sort of perfect weapon that you promised them. You didn't even tell me that I'm part alien, which is something I learned in the last issue that apparently I forgot about. And it's like, oh, I'm part alien. I'm not even totally human. It's like, of course you're not. What? You have powers. How did you think that you were entirely human? And he's like, oh yeah, I got powers. And he tries to use them on Red. And Red's like, oh, they don't work on me. They don't work on any of us. And Superboy's like, what do you mean us? And he's like, oh, there are 13 of us. Because of course there are 13 of us. But as soon as he's about to throw a punch and be like, whatever, it doesn't matter. Bye. Superboy drops like her room onto her. Because he's like, well, maybe your powers don't affect you, but I'm pretty sure giant piles of rubble do. So as soon as she's hit with the stuff, she falls unconscious and she shrinks back down to normal. And then there's this, just immediately, someone's in the room and they're like, all right, Superboy, good job, good job. And Superboy's like, who the hell are you? And we get the reveal that it's this guy named Centerhall, and Red's name is apparently Caitlin. I don't know if that was ever revealed. It is Caitlin Fairchild. And he's like, yeah, apparently she was a mole, and we figured there was a mole in here, but we didn't think she'd be stupid enough to use her mole powers inside the facility, so hey, thanks for that one. Anyway, let me go show you something. And basically walked Superboy down to a lab. I was like, yeah, look, we're empty here. There's nobody around. This is just between you and me. Look, we know where your alien part came from because it's kind of hard to get your hands on Kryptonian DNA. Like, that side of your DNA pretty much accounted for. But we worked in such total secrecy. Like, we had labs doing all these different things without any knowledge of each other that we don't actually know who your human half is. So, I'm sorry, but there's no way to know for sure. But if you want, you can join us here in Nowhere, and like I'm cool. I'm better than Red. I'm just gonna let you come and go as you please. If you don't want to be here, you don't got to be here. You're welcome to leave. But here's my card. Give us a call if you ever change your mind. And Superboy's like, oh, sweet, okay, bye. So he just leaves. We cut to a week later. They're in New York City, and it's about Christmas time. And he's just sitting on the stoops, just having to take this group of carolers who are singing to him as he thinks about, like, okay, so this is kind of my, like, just feeling out the real world and seeing if I enjoy that. Like the Amish tradition of Rumspringa. And I got to tell you, I'm not super into it right now with the carolers. So he uses his powers and he just throws them all around. He's like, stop singing. Why are you even singing? He's like, well, we're celebrating our faith. And it's like, that's stupid. The world sucks. Everything sucks. Your faith is dumb. I'm flying away. And so he flies away and he just kind of flies over the city and reflects for a while. And it comes down to this thing on, like, everything has to be a symbol. Like, they wanted me to wear that stupid S, but I just want to be me. Why do I have to be something larger than myself? And he goes to, I forget the name of the park, but the park where the giant tree is. And he's just staring at it. It's like this tree. This tree has nothing to do. It's just a dead tree that they decorated, yet somehow it's the symbol of Christmas. And he gets so pissed off by it, by the fact that, like, things can represent things larger than himself, that he sets fire to the tree. So yeah. So he's just like, I don't know, maybe just I'm also feeling bad that I'm not totally human, but as he's hearing that, and he's flying around, we cut to the inside of, I'm pretty sure it's the Empire State Building, and there's this couple inside, the couple from last issue that showed up and disappeared out of nowhere. And they're like, hey, I'm sorry this date isn't going so well, honey. I thought this would be a great dinner for Christmas Eve on our cross-country road trip. And she's like, oh, no, this is great. It's just that this place is dead. And they zoom out and they've revealed that they've killed literally everybody in this restaurant. And the band is still playing just out of fear. And the guy's like, okay, I have an idea. And the dude throws one of the people out the window from the band. Superboy sees the guy falling. He's like, this doesn't concern me. I don't need to get involved. But he feels compelled to anyway. So he grabs the guy, brings it back up to the window. And he's like, hey, did you guys throw this guy out? Like, I'm all for, some mischief and rambunctiousness, but cold-blooded murder is kind of bad in my eyes. And they're like, I'm sorry, who are you? Why are you threatening us? And so then they just start fighting. The dude has stretchy skin powers that can, like, wrap up Superboy. And the girl's got some weird, like, telekinetic firepower. So they're like, oh, we're going to fry you. And he's like, yeah, okay, go ahead, do that, fry me. She lost that. She lashes out a fireball at him. He reflects it back to her, catches her on fire. I didn't even know that was possible. And then as the dude is caring for his girlfriend, which, again, I don't think they have names. I'm just calling them dude and girl because that's all they really call themselves. Superboy grabs onto one of his stretchy arms and throws him across the room. And he's like, all right, it was too late to help the people here, and I didn't have any responsibility to help the people here, but it felt right to help that one guy, so okay, I guess I'm in. So he calls up Center Hall, and he's like, hey, look, I'm kind of in. Thanks for showing up here and cleaning up this mess. So what do you want me to do? And he's like, well, we're currently going after Wonder Girl and all the other Teen Titans. And that's that. We're finally getting into the Teen Titans thing that they promised after issue 1. So, yeah, okay, right off the bat on the art, I have such a love-hate relationship with R.B. Silva. Some panels really work for me, and some panels really don't. So I'm pretty much just going to split the average on that. Writing-wise, it's a bit breakneck of a pace. Like, we get, like, the red thing is just wrapped up, and it's like, okay, and we're not going to talk about that again. And then he sets the giant tree on fire, and it's like, okay, and we're not going to talk about that again. And then this whole thing with the couple happens, and I guarantee you it's going to be an okay, and we're not going to talk about that again. Like, it's just a whole bunch of things happening that, because we know his internal monologue, we can see his progression of thoughts, but none of these events link to each other at all. It's just the fact that he's around for them. So overall, I'm going to give this one a 5.5, just barely above the middle, just out of, finally we're getting to the Teen Titans. Like, finally, that's what they promised at the end of issue 1, and I'm happy we're finally getting there. So 5.5 for Superboy number 4. Green Lantern number 4, written by Geoff Johns, art by Doug Mahnke. We left off last issue with Hal Jordan flying into the Yellow Lantern power battery in an effort to destroy it, and then seemingly being completely disintegrated. This issue picks up saying, well, hold on, he wasn't completely disintegrated, despite the fact the last issue said disintegration complete. No, this issue we see that he's still struggling, and he's going through some memories of all the breakups he's had with Carol Ferris, which is weird. And then the yellow battery says, oh, wait, you're not Sinestro. Transport to antimatter universe aborted. And so then the Yellow Lantern starts freaking out. Sinestro's like, oh, hey, maybe he actually managed to do it. And then he sees that it spits out the Green Lantern battery. He's like, wait a minute, hold on. Oh, how did you manage to screw this up, Hal? For God's sakes. And then he looks up and wonders where Hal is, and we see that he's just been spit out as well. Lands right next to Sinestro. And Sinestro is caught so off guard that basically the Yellow Lanterns get a handle on him. They're able to hold him down. And Hal's unconscious, so he's not doing anything. And they're like, cool. So we're going to go ahead and just rip this green ring off of Sinestro's finger, just in case maybe it's like the Guardians are mind-controlling him, so our actual Sinestro is still in there. Possible. Anyway, we can throw Hal into the cell, though. So they throw Hal into the cell, and they're like, yeah, you can waste your time all you want with your Green Lantern power. It's not going to be able to get you out of here. And lo and behold, he does exactly that as soon as he comes to. He starts using his ring for as many ways as he can think to smash through the door. And it's not doing anything until finally his ring is like, warning, 0%, your ring's about to die. And so Hal's like, all right, I can make one more construct to get out of here. I can't do this brashly. I just need to think, what is the last thing I want to make before the light goes out? And he thinks for a second, and he makes a construct that looks like Carol. And he says, Carol, I'm sorry. And it fades, and he's left without his Green Lantern ring. So then we cut to Sinestro, who's being straight up super tortured via the Yellow Lanterns, trying to get this ring off of him. And apparently they're not having any luck. But they are very happy to cause Sinestro this much pain. And basically, they're just reasoning like, oh, well, here's the thing. your green power has truly infected your brain. Don't worry. I have a way of freeing you, even if it means taking off your hand. So then we go to the cell next to Hal. We see Hal's waking up and he hears it opening up. And Sinestro's thrown in. And he's like, well, we're going to put him in here until we can get all of the green energy removed from his ring, and then we'll have an easier time of taking it off. But as he's thrown in, Sinestro wakes up and sees he's surrounded by all of his own people. The Corrigans, I don't know what they're called. But anyway, they're all there, and they are terrified of Sinestro. They are pissed at him. They are keeping their distance. And someone steps up named Officer Arsona, who I believe was the girl from the middle of the last issue. Probably. Anyway. And they're like, oh no, they're all afraid of you because you have done this to our people. And he's like, no. I specifically told the Yellow Lanterns not to do this, and they've gone against my will. And he's like, you still made the Yellow Lantern. This is still your fault, Sinestro. And it's like, I supported you. I followed your will because I thought what you were doing was right. And he's like, and you were right to support me because what I was doing was right. And she's like, shut up. You are such an ass. And basically he's just like trying to attack him, and he is unwilling to let up that he didn't do anything wrong. This is all the Yellow Lanterns, and he's here to help. But finally, after Arsona walks away and says how he betrayed her, she's like, wait, I am sorry. I made a mistake. And she's like, that's not going to do anything to help. Meanwhile, you got a single cut to Hal here, and he's like, oh my God, he said he was sorry. I'm so happy I got to hear this. So Hal then chimes up, and he's like, wait a minute, hold on. There could be a way. And they're like, hold on, Hal, is that you? And he's like, yeah. You know how you made that ring for me? It doesn't hold as good of a charge. Thanks for mentioning that, by the way. But you could make one for all the people in there. Surely everyone in there would be able to get out with that much willpower, get out of this cell. And they're like, okay, yeah, worth a shot, whatever. So Sinestro starts concentrating. He's planning on making his ring. Hal's like, you can do it, Sinestro. You can do it. And Sinestro's like, shut up, Jordan. I know I can do it. And he just makes a whole bunch of rings. They all go onto the fingers of everyone in the room. And Sinestro's like, I did it. We can get out of here. And he's like, yeah, you did it all right, Sinestro. And we see the Corrigarians now, all with fully powered lantern rings, are all turning on Sinestro. It's like, we're finally going to have our revenge on you. And that's where the issue ends. Real quick, just with that ending, are we supposed to forget that Hal wasn't able to attack Sinestro? Like, we know that that's not going to work. Like, it seems, I know that for the individual issue's sake, there's nothing to say that they can't attack Sinestro, but, like, we know that they can if you've been reading just these 4 issues. I don't know. It just seems like a weird way to be like, aha, when everyone in the audience, even the people who like aren't aware of comic tropes, have been explicitly told that that's not going to work. Anyway, I like this issue. It's solid. It does a little bit of character motivation on both Hal and Sinestro. Sinestro finally admitting that he made a mistake, and Hal doing his whole Carol thing. Not a lot of plot forwarding. It just seems more or less like we're pretty much in the same place, except now they've got more Green Lanterns, which is just the tiniest move forward. So overall, I like the writing, story-wise, whatever. Art-wise, fantastic. It's very good looking. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 7. I like it. I'm looking forward to see how we move on from here. Especially, like, these cells are designed to just absorb these ring energies, so I don't understand how splitting one ring into, like, 50 changes anything, but I'm sure they'll have some explanation. So, yeah, no, 7 for Green Lantern number 4. Mr. Terrific number 4, written by Eric Wallace, art by Gianluca Gugliotta. We left off last issue with the end of Brainwave. Mr. Terrific seemingly had gone too far and had betrayed his morals, and now was exiling himself into his 9th dimension, when he was interrupted by 2 aliens that say, hey, you gotta help us, the Krill are coming and only you can save us, Sky Rider. And this issue basically is just him following along with these aliens. And he's like, wow, okay, so aliens. Like, I know that Superman's an alien, and that's a thing, but I didn't expect other aliens. And they're basically explaining, like, okay, so the Krill are a super tyrannical race, and we are pacifists, and they see us as traitors because of that. And so they're enslaving us, and we need you to stop them and take them all out and destroy their empire or whatever. And he's like, okay, all right, cool. Where are they? And he's like, oh, well, we're going to take you there now. And then the other one's like, oh, too late. And the giant ship is there just on top of them. And he's like, wow, okay, they moved completely silently. Need to look into that tech, but no time for that. We got to get out of there before. And as if on cue, he's zapped with one of their giant space lasers. And the two that had contacted him to get help are like, cool, we got him. Good job, fellow Krill. And he's like, damn it. Fell into a trap where they pretended to be the ones who needed help, but they were actually the enslavers the whole time. And this space laser is cutting off my connection to my T-spheres, so they're not coming with me. Double darn it. So he's enslaved, and he's being marched through some jail cells, basically. And they're like, wow, he's admiring the place. It's like, this ship is a work of art. Like, they've done great. It really sucks that they're such a barbaric and warfaring race. And as he's walking by some of the cells, some of the aliens are yelling out, but it's in a way that he can't understand. But he can understand the Krill talking back to them. And he's like, all right, so clearly there's some sort of translation going on. Considering they're pretty much naked, it must be the only piece of clothing they're wearing, aka a belt around their waist, that's doing the translation. So noted that. And basically he's just pissed off that, oh my, who's the real villain now? Because was I really any better when I gave in to my urges and blah blah blah. So they start doing a little bit of operating on him because like, hey, you're the first human we've ever got here, and we are very interested to see your insides. But as he's trying to fight back against whatever it is they're doing, he's losing the battle. And they get into his head, and they see all this messed up versions of all the characters from the last arc. Brainwave, Karen, even the kid who had like fair play written on his arms. He's still like some messed up kid who carved it into his arms now. And the Krill's just like, wow, very fascinating. Anyway, he blacks out. He wakes up. He's inside a cell. And there's a whole bunch of other aliens around. And he's like, all right, well, got to try to communicate. Klaatu Baratic Nikta. And immediately, one of these big guys with a bunch of like spikes on them starts attacking. And they're like, all right, yeah, I know the drill. You're in a jail, and you guys got to get attacked. But he notices that during one of the swipes, the jail cells, which are, typical energy beam sort of stuff, as he hits it, he recognizes how the light moves and realizes that it must be like a hard light construct. And as such, he can use his mask, which was not taken from him, and the technology in that in order to create science mumbo jumbo. I really don't care enough to refractive frequencies, refraction void, the fifth law of infinite fractal mechanics. I think he's just making it all up. But regardless, what he needs is two of the spines from this spiny creature in order to do like the precise adjustments to his mask. And he's just trying to charade himself into being able to show the dude attacking him like, look, I want to get out and I just need your help. It's not working. The guy's about to go for a killing blow when this even bigger dude who looks like a purple Hulk shows up, just grabs the spine dude, throws him onto the ground. They get into an argument where the spiny dude's talking in some alien race, and then Hulk dude just yells down at him. And then Hulk dude understood the charade, and he's like, okay, what do you need, pretty much? And Mr. Terrific points out the spines, and Hulk dude just rips it out of the guy. He starts doing his little tech adjustments, and he's like, well, I really hope this works, because otherwise I just convinced them of a lot of stuff. And he throws his mask in there, and it does manage to make a hole that they are able to get out of. So the alarm is raised, Krill go running, they see that the entire jail cell is standing in front of them. And it's like, I like Mr. Terrific's line here, Question: what's scarier than a black man with an alien posse? Answer: an angry black man with an alien posse. As he starts beating up the krill, they take the translation belts off the two. The purple guy and Mr. Terrific get them. And Mr. Terrific is like, all right, you guys better get ready. We're about to have company. And the big guy's name is Erdron. And he's like, go ahead and lead. I'll do the rest. And he's like, cool, awesome. So now they've got a whole alien squad to fight off this ship of krill as the two of them have teamed up. And that's where we leave off. I'm surprised. I did like this issue. It felt like it was moving really, really fast. Like, we just learned about these guys, and now we already understand that there's the heel turn. He's already been operated on. He's already fought some people, turned them, made them good, and now we're in the escape part. That felt like 20 minutes tops in that all of this happening. That's really fast. But it's not a bad story. Like, I like the way that this is taken, because I was so sick of whatever they were doing in the last 3 issues before this that I genuinely can't even remember most of it. So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 6. The art is very good. I like the way they were handling it. The aliens look fantastic as well. There a lot of detail that didn't need to be there, but I'm glad they did. It's a good turn in direction. I like the way it's moving after those last 3 issues were a lot shakier. So, looking forward to seeing what Miss Terrific brings next time. Deathstroke number 4, written by Kyle Higgins, art by Joe Bennett. Last issue left off with a whole bunch of stuff that doesn't actually relate to this issue directly, so I'm not even going to bother with it. This issue picks up with Deathstroke in chains. He is Slade Wilson. He is all bound up in a metahuman prison, maximum security in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And the warden comes up just to gloat, and he's like, there was this football player I really liked. He was just the absolute best, but he didn't know when to quit. And in his later years, before he finally retired, he was slowing down. He was getting worse. So by the time he finally did retire, he was just a shell of his former glory. Reminds me a lot of you, Slade. You washed up and you're broken and you didn't know when to quit. He's like, yeah, that's fair, unless this was actually the beginning of a new rebirth. And he breaks out of his chains, immediately starts killing everybody. And he's like, oh dear warden, I went through a lot of trouble just to get in here and see you. So we're going to have some fun. And he starts beating up all the guards. He finally makes it to the warden. The warden's like, oh, this is a metahuman prison. You're not getting out of here unless you've got some, tactical military explosives. And he just coughs up military explosives and shoves it into the warden's mouth. And he's like, yeah, I know. And then he runs out of the room as the beeping increases in volume. And then, it's implied what happens. But then we cut to a plane somewhere over the Midwest later on. And Kristoff is talking to Slade, and he's like, all right, is there anything else I need to include? And he's like, yeah, make sure that you may get out that the arrest was also fake. I don't want people thinking I actually got arrested and then turned it into a breakout. It was all about the hit. And Kristoff's like, yeah, okay, cool. By the way, we need sleep sometimes. You've been working us around the clock for the past 2 weeks. I'm not in my 20s. I'm old. I need to get some sleep. And we see that Slade is looking down at his left hand, and it's got some tremors to it. So he puts on his gear, and he goes to jump out the plane. But before he does, he tells Kristoff, look, you're right. I've been pushing you too hard. Square up the payments. Go take a vacation. I'll handle this for until you get back. And he jumps out of the plane. We see he apparently landed around Michigan. Detroit specifically. He's in an abandoned old church, just resting up, waiting for another call from whoever. His hand's still shaking, and he's frustrated about that. He loses his cool for a second. Peabody walks in, and he's like, okay, what's up? And he's like, nothing. What's up with you? And Peabody is like, all right, well, I got that briefcase, that mysterious briefcase we've been talking about for 4 issues now. I got it checked out. Do you want to know what I found? And he's like, well, it's real. The thing inside it is real. And what is the thing inside it? It is the mask of Ravager, a.k.a. his son, that he watched die. He knows that Ravager is dead. Yet somehow his mask, his knife, and a fresh blood stain, because Peabody's like, look, this blood is less than a week old at the point that we found it. So unless somebody had his blood on ice, Grant might still be alive. And Deathstroke's like, are there any leads at all? And he's like, there's only one lead that we have of someone running data on nth metal, which is also what's in this mask. And it was bounced around, but it actually apparently turned out to be a man named Attila from the Blackhawks, which is another DC series that we are covering right now. So a little bit of crossover. And apparently him and Deathstroke have some history. It's not said exactly what happened, but there's bad blood there. So he's like, look, if you want answers, I'm sure you want to climb up this mountain and just kill everybody in your way. But there are other ways to deal with this. And he's like, no, there isn't. I need you to build me something that can fly, though. So we cut to 4 days later. Attila is doing some reconnaissance around a Blackhawks base, and Deathstroke, in this personal, hover bike sort of setup, just flies in a collision course with Attila in his jet. He fires off some rockets. It's a general fight scene. He uses a sword to lop off the wing of the plane. As Attila's ejecting, Deathstroke grabs him and starts flying him to wherever he's going to go, interrogate him. But then, something went wrong, and Deathstroke starts flying, into a mountain, pretty much. He crashes on the ground, drops his sword. Attila sees it, runs over, grabs the sword, runs towards Slade, and then Deathstroke's like, are you kidding me? And he just already has a gun trained on Attila, and he's like, put the sword down. And Attila's disappointed that he would use a gun after their history, which we still don't know anything about. But then we just get them questioning each other a little bit. Deathstroke's like, well, okay, so you're working for the Blackhawks now? And he's like, yeah, it's a hell of a lot better than where I was. You're working with that trash Peabody? And he's like, what's wrong with Peabody? And he's like, Peabody's been hunting down nth metal stuff, which is a big no-no for the Blackhawks. Blackhawks control the illicit weapons market. That's what their whole thing is. And Peabody is pretty much on the top of our list. And you just helped us find him faster just by being here. So thanks for that. And Deathstroke's like, and your team knows about your history? And he's like, they're behind me. I got out while I was still young. Better than you can say. And they're just still in a standoff as we cut over to Christoph, I guess, setting up his vacation. He's approached from behind by somebody that he recognizes, but is not shown to us. Who is holding Ravager's knife, but a different one, I presume, at least. And he grabs Christoph by the face and he's like, I'm sending a message to Slade. And he stabs it through Christoph's eye and then stabs it into the table and says, all right, now Slade will know the time's almost up. And that's where we leave off, with Christoph dead and him in a standoff with one of the Blackhawks. I like this. I like this one. It's setting up a tiny little mystery and okay, what's going on with Deathstroke's hand? It's finally revealed what's in the briefcase. I'm very happy about that. We're getting that whole mystery thing of his son may be alive. Doing a little bit of a tie-in with Blackhawks without it even having to be a tie-in with Blackhawks. It's not an event. It's just a thing of, yes, these universes coexist. And I like when comic books do that, because it's just a sign of, okay, it's a cohesive narrative. Everything's blending together. So overall, I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 7. I think it's very well written. Art-wise, nothing really stands out as fantastic. It's got its moments, but it's not oh, wow, amazing the whole way through. If anything, I think the action-y scenes are actually where it falls the most flat, and the scenes where they're just talking are the better-looking ones. But maybe that's just me. So overall, I'm giving Deathstroke number 4 a 7. And I'm actually looking forward to the mysteries they're setting up here. Grifter number 4, written by Nathan Edmonson, art by Scott Clark. We last left off with Grifter getting a hold of one of the Demonites and heading up to the Q-Core building in Seattle, aka Green Arrow's hometown. This issue picks up with Seattle in Green Arrow's hometown in the Q-Core building. There's a meeting with some investors, and one of the ladies is walking them around, be like, oh yes, Q-Core is always at the top of the line of technology and blah blah blah. And we get Grifter's voiceover saying like, sometimes you got to be like chill and hang out in the shadows, but sometimes you got to make a bold move. And his bold move in this is he crashes his car through the front door of Q-Corps, and he steps out with a giant gun in hand, and the Demonite is duct taped to his arm so that he can't get away. And he's like, all right, just want to know who's in charge around here. And he knows it's Oliver Queen, and he wants Oliver Queen here now. He's holding actual just random people at gunpoint to make this happen. The Demonite voice starts talking. He's like, hey, bro, I can see you're trapped. Do you need some help? And he's like, I can hear you, and if you want to show yourself too, I'd be more than happy to aim this gun at you. And the Demonite that he's taped to is like, I led you here as a trap, you idiot. You're going to be blinded by your pride, just like the rest of your people. And he's like, hey, if I go out, you go out, and I'm more than okay with that. But as he's waiting for Oliver Queen to show up, the tape connecting the two of them is suddenly severed by an arrow. And so he had another gun within the duct tape aimed at the guy's head. So now he's got two guns trained on Green Arrow, who shows up, fires off a sleeping gas arrow, I guess you want to call it, and Grifter just manages to grab it out of midair. And he's like, it's going to be a while before I understand how I did that. But basically these two just get into some sort of firefight. Grifter realizes that the Demonite that he had captured is getting away, but he's not able to both keep on his toes with Green Arrow while also chasing him. So he's forced to flee from Green Arrow and leave the Demonite to do whatever. We get a quick cutaway to the general who's been all over Grifter's case, and the bald guy who's in, I'm pretty sure, like the background of last issue. I don't even know if I mentioned him, but apparently the bald dude withheld some information that basically led Grifter's brother to his death, and the bald guy's blaming it on the general. I don't know where this came. I literally reread it to see where this came from, and I don't know. I have no idea what information we're talking about. But anyway, the bald guy leaves, saying the general doesn't even have a career anymore. He's a colonel, not a general. As a sergeant comes up and is like, hey, we got a sighting of our masked man in Seattle on the run from Green Arrow. And the colonel's like, all right, get the car, let's go. So cut back to the fight. He's running through the streets. Green Arrow's on top of a truck. He's trying to get aim on Grifter. He's on his comms talking to his person in the chair, Naomi. Grifter manages to hijack a car out of a car wash, and he's got a really cool little bit here where it's not a convertible, mind you. He punches out the windshield. He takes his belt off, wraps it around the steering wheel, then jumps out onto the hood and uses the belt to steer the car while aiming backwards on the hood at Green Arrow. So they're in a bit of a firefight. Green Arrow manages to aim a shot to get the mask off of Grifter to be able to see his face. Grifter turns around, lunges, grabs his mask back off the edge of the arrow, puts it back on, and then they're stuck in a dead heat, like gun trained on Green Arrow's chest, arrow aimed at his throat. And there's like, okay, look, I'm innocent. Q-Corps just has something to do with whatever I'm wrapped up in, and I'm just trying to clear my name. And Green Arrow's like, what are you talking about? He's like, they're Demonites. They're working for Q-Corps. They're after me. They're body snatchers. That's all I got. And he's like, okay, you're crazy, and you're endangering innocents. That doesn't happen on my watch. So he manages to move the gun out of the line of shot and then shocks Grifter so that some police can come and surround him. And he's like, well, guess I'm out of luck. And then on cue, a smoke grenade comes in, and it ends up being shot, I think, by Green Arrow himself. It's hard to say because, it is an arrow, but it's shot by just off panel. It doesn't actually show Green Arrow doing it. But anyway, the smoke allows Grifter to get clear. He goes down an alley, and there's a woman waiting on a bike who's like, hop on if you want to live. So he hops on, a cop car's in their way. They do a cool jump ramp over it, and then Grifter gets away with this woman. Green Arrow's like, okay, who the hell was that? And they apparently got an ID on her. Their name is Sophia Cordon. She's a Q-Corps employee. And Green Arrow's like, well, pull everything on her and also look up this Demon Knight thing. That's something we're going to have to look into in our company. And then we just get a one-page epilogue of the girlfriend, Gretchen, who's still being tied up by the Damonites. And he's like, all right, tell us what makes your boyfriend so special, and we'll let you go. And he's like, I don't know, we're not together anymore. He's like, okay, all right, well, we've got this big scary monster thing that we're going to keep in the dark, but trust me, it's big and scary, and he's going to do anything to get the information out of you. And then they show the monster's eyes, and it's like anything. And that's where we leave off. As far as like little mini crossovers go, I like it. I like how it's just a thing of, okay, well, you know, the Damonites have something to do with Q-Corps, something to do with Green Arrow. And it was just a quick little jump in and then jump out. And I don't even know, maybe we're still going to be in Seattle next issue. But maybe we'll stick around with Green Arrow. Point being is that I like when it's a smaller universe where people can actually run into each other. So overall, I'm going to give this one a 6. I really like the action scene of the car. My biggest problem with it is that, like, a lot of the decisions the characters make don't really make a lot of sense to me. Like, he works so hard to get this demon, like, on the edge of his gun. But then as soon as he, like, is separated from it, he doesn't just immediately pull the trigger. And as we've seen, when you pull the trigger on these things, they look like demons. Like, they turn into demon knights. They are aliens. So that would have cleared his story. I don't know. And then the whole thing with the general or colonel bit, I still don't know what to make of that. It just made some confusing leaps at times. But the action, which I think is the whole reason this book exists, is solid. And I think that's more than worth the 6. So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to do from here. It finally feels like there's some semblance of a story that we're going to follow, where it's, you know, it's just him trying to clear his name. That's the general amount of what we're doing, and everybody is against him. So yeah, no, I'm interested in that. I'm looking to see where it goes. But for this particular issue, 6. Suicide Squad number 4, written by Adam Glass, art by Frederico Dallocchio. We left off last issue with the squad coming into contact with Captain Boomerang, who is now apparently in charge of the squad because he's got the detonator for the bomb in all their necks. So that's the thing. This issue picks up. They are going to some place. It never explicitly says where, but is the lair, cult headquarters, whatever you want to call it, of a place called Basilisk, where basically they believe that there's a war between normal people and superheroes coming, and they're going to be on the winning side. So they have to come in and they have to find the developer of the nanite virus, which I think they're still talking about the one that was made in like issue 1, who is here at this Basilisk headquarters. There's some tension between Boomerang and Deadshot, and they're basically like just reestablishing like Captain Boomerang is the leader, he is in charge, but Deadshot's like, okay, but you're an idiot, so yeah. But anyway, they just reestablished the stuff. We also have this new guy named Yo-Yo. We don't know enough about him right now. He's just kind of there. So they go down to the laboratory, and they're looking for the developer of the virus, Dr. Eliza Visyak. They bust in, they immediately find her, and they're like, hey, here you are. And they're like, oh, what, are you guys superheroes? And it's like, nah, we're the bad guys, and we're here to take you. What do you say to that? And she's like, hail Basilisk. And her and everyone else in the lab all take cyanide tablets, and they all kill themselves. So immediately things go bad. Deadshot is up on top of Captain Boomerang for failing so hard so quick. Boomerang's immediately about to threaten to blow them all up. Meanwhile, El Diablo walks over and basically gives her the breath of life and is like, hey, so I burned out all the toxins in her body, but she's still in need of medical attention, so we got to go now. And they're like, oh, all right, cool. But then that exact moment, one of the Basilisk guards come in, and he's like, whoa, all right, what's going on in here? And Deadshot's about to take the shot on him before he can do anything. But Harley's like, nah, I need a good smashing. And immediately he's like, I'm going to live forever. Hail Basilisk. And he blows himself up in this massive explosion that takes out the entire lab. And we see what Yo-Yo's power is, which is that he can grow or shrink. Like, not tall-wise, but like fat or skinny. So he makes himself into like a human wall to block the explosion. And he's like, yeah, that's my thing. That's why I'm Yo-Yo. You want to see me get skinny? And everyone's like, no, whatever. So they realize that explosion is going to bring some more trouble. They got to get out now. They break down one of the walls. Diablo asks King Shark if he can help carry the body. King Shark is just lost in a daze, and he's just like, there is so much blood around here. Diablo's like, all right, I'm going to carry the body. And as they walk out, they do their group pose thing of all walking in a line. And Harley goes like, man, if only Mr. J could see me now. And Captain Boomerang's like, Joker? Oh, you haven't heard? He's dead. Someone skinned his face in Gotham. See Detective Comics #1. No one knows who did it, but he's dead. And Harley's like, nah, you're not kidding, are you? And she's just kind of lost out of it for a second. Deadshot's like, hey, come on, focus. And she's like, no, I'm totally focused. I'm totally in it right now. So they reach the door, they open it up, and they've got guns trained on them with like everybody in the base, along with someone named Gray Laura, who seems to be somewhat of a leader here. And so she's like, all right, which one of you guys is in charge? And she's like, that's me, Captain Boomerang. I'm here to... And as he's about to start, doing this whole spiel about being in charge of this team, Deadshot just says 3 words of Wong Fan Ye. And Grey Laura immediately pounces on him, holds her down, and is like, how dare you speak her name? What do you know about her? And it's like, she's dead. And Grey Laura's about to bite off her head. She's got like an extendable jaw with sharp teeth. And Deadshot's like, I can show you how she died if you wanted. And Boomerang's completely lost. He's like, what's going on here? And he pulls up a hologram from his like wrist camera or whatever. And he's like, I will show you how she died if you bring us to Lord Coil. And that's the guy in charge of Basilisk. She's like, we are a small sect. We are beyond Lord Coil's reach. Show me what happened. She's like, all right, whatever. So apparently she was killed through the heart with a boomerang, which immediately has Grey Laura turn around to Captain Boomerang. He's like, whoa, I don't know you. I didn't kill anybody that you know. And he's like, oh, you knew her when she was named Asp, a paid hit. And he's like, oh, and she was someone to you. Okay, all right. He pulls out the trigger and he's like, all right, everyone back off or I'm going to blow us all the kingdom come. And he's like, all right, here we go. And he clicks the button and nothing happens. And he clicks it, and nothing happens. And everyone's laughing at him. And like, you thought that Waller was just going to let you actually have any power here? No, this was the plan all along. You were the leverage that we needed. We weren't coming here to kill them. We needed info. You were the leverage the whole time, Boomerang. So Deadshot shoots him in the hand so he can't throw the boomerangs anymore. And they're like, all right, well, you let us go and then you can have him and we'll bring back Wong Fan Ye's body. All you need to do is get us out of here. So they do the trade and they're like, all right, cool. We've only got like an hour left on our timers. So need you to take care of that right now, Waller. Not even an hour, 30 minutes. And Waller's like, oh, you can't give me orders. I control you. But one of the doctors is absentmindedly, he just disabled Harley Quinn's neck bomb. And she's like, whoa. You don't do that until she's back in her cell. You don't. He's like, she's just a girl with no powers. What is she going to do? So Harley is sent to isolation and the rest of the squad's put down in a holding cell. And they're down there for at least 10 minutes. So they're like, our clock is ticking. We only got 20 minutes left. They got to disable these bombs. And then the holding cell opens back up as a red alert goes off. And they're given the thing of like, all right, you're being put back into deployment. And they're like, what do you mean we're back? We got 20 minutes on our bombs left. And he's like, well, it's not going to be a long travel time because it's a supervillain prison riot here at Blackgate. You are sentenced to stop this riot within 20 minutes or your heads explode. And it is one hell of a riot. I actually really like this. I actually really like it's a good setup of, okay, well, we made Captain Boomerang in charge and we're not pretending like this is going to be some long-term thing. It's literally just used as leverage for this one mission. And then it's taken off. And I like how there's still this sense of time, this sense of like, you have a limited amount of time on your neck bombs, and it's very well paced to be able to be like, okay, well, it's believable that this can be done in this amount of time. So I actually really like that. Once Harley learns about Mr. J, about Joker being killed, there's a good, like, you can tell she's had a mental break. Like, she spends the entire first half of the issue, and any one of her close-ups, she's all happy and cheery, and then after that, it's just dead-eyed. And I like that. It does a real good job with the art. Overall, I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 6.5. My only real criticism with it is that it's just, it does feel superfluous in some way. Like, yes, these people supposedly developed the virus, but then, as it turns out, like, they didn't care about getting the virus at all. It just seemed like they wanted leverage on this one. I'm not entirely sure as to what the goal was in this particular mission. It just seemed a bit murky, just so they could have that double cross on Captain Boomerang. That's the only reason it feels like it's here. But yeah, overall, though, it's still very well written, very good art, and I'm looking forward to seeing how they're going to take out a supervillain riot in just 20 minutes. Legion Lost, number 4, written by Fabian, Nicieza, art by Pete Woods. We left off last issue with an alien battle between a human-alien hybrid that was super-duper scary looking and Timberwolf, and then Chameleon Girl is supposedly trying to come back to life through this downed alien. I don't know. I'm doing my best to learn the names here. I want that on the record. So this whole issue is told mainly from the perspective of Dawnstar, and Tellus is up there just trying to be like, hey, just need you to, like, focus your mind, and, like, he's helping her to telepathically focus and whatever, but she's also hooked into what her fellow Legionnaires are experiencing. And we see that Timberwolf is seeing Chameleon Girl goopy but crawling out of this alien corpse, and then there's some other seemingly, like, military threat that's able to see this whole thing, and they're sending a team to deal with it. They don't get a name, but they're there. And then we see Tyrock and Wildfire flying through the sky, trying to get to where Timberwolf is. So then we cut back to Timberwolf, and by the way, this whole time Dawnfire's talking about, like, oh, I wish I could be like my teammates. They're able to do things so naturally and so confidently, and I'm just not that. And they stretch that over 20 pages. So, ignoring all that, Timberwolf's like, whoa, Chameleon Girl, you're alive. You're a shapeshifter. And she's like, yes, but I only have half of my biomass here. It's not enough to get away from, like, this beast who's trying to control it. So, get away, run. So then the beast comes back to life, and it starts charging after the cops. Timberwolf wakes up, and he's like, ah, dang it. Tackles it down to the ground. Remember, it is still half human, as is the other alien that was in this fight to begin with. And the one cop sees that the other one is still breathing, is still alive. And he's like, no, wait, don't shoot it. And he jumps in the way of the bullet, leaving the scary one to come after the cops again. But as it's about to attack them, Wildfire and Tyrock break in and knock it to the ground with their energy blasts. And it's like, oh, okay, so human mixed with Okaran DNA. That's something to look forward to. And then Timberwolf's like, hey, by the way, Chameleon Girl's alive. She's inside that thing, kind of. I was like, oh, seriously? Okay, well, we got to deal with that. So immediately the Okaran whatever bursts out of the building, tries to flee. They have to rescue the civilians real quick of stopping everything. And as they're trying to save the civilians, the cops are like, freeze, get down on the ground. It's like, we are saving you. Are you kidding me? It's like, still, you have to answer our questions because we're here in Fargo, not Gotham. And it's like, okay, we don't got time for this. Timberwolf, you go on ahead. And Timberwolf just leaps his way out of the building. Meanwhile, Tyrock and Wildfire takes care of all the guns, and Tyrock explodes every one of the cameras nearby, and then they fly off after. So they're like, all right, well, how are we gonna help Chameleon Girl? How are we gonna do this? And it's like, I don't know. Well, first let's try to catch her. And it's like, wait a minute, hold on. And for some reason, there's a conversation where Wildfire comes to the realization where Tyrock knew that they would be trapped here for some period of time. It's like, you knew this was going to get bad for us. That's why you had us like search for so much supplies and like take our time and settle down at first. You knew this would happen. He's like, doesn't matter. I just knew that we couldn't get into our storage unit. So anyway, there's one thing we got to take care of now. And they get back to the hunting down of the beast. We cut over to Dawnstar, who's finally getting to, focus, because she hasn't been this whole issue, and tells us, like, just focus on what happened. Remember exactly what happened in the moment of the explosion of our time bubble. And she's like, well, there was a time bubble. There was the biological remains of our friends, but I heard this distant rumbling, and I thought it was thunder, but it wasn't thunder. It was, what's his name? Alistair, the bad guy, crashing to the ground. And there was like a seismic ripple when he did, and that was what the rumble was. And if I just backtrack all that with yada yada magic stuff, I can figure out exactly where he is now. So she's like, hey, guys, I know exactly where Alistair is. And he's like, cool. We will all meet up together as soon as we're done with catching Chameleon Girl here. So you guys just hold still and don't do anything brash. So they're all going after the beast. And they're like, wait a minute, hold on. Timberwolf can hear her, but it's not like a panicked run anymore. It's a steady heartbeat. And they come across the beast, and she's been tranquilized. She's been hit with darts. Immediately, they're all lit up, and they're like, oh, surrender. You have been apprehended by the team known as the Black Razors. And it's just this military group with drones and stuff like that. And, they're standing there, and Timberwolf's like, this is funny. What else could go wrong? And so, cutting over to Dawnstar, they're like, all right, Alistair's just sitting in a food court right now. He's just hanging around. It's kind of making him sad because his sister, which is his whole purpose for being, was around the teenage age, where all these teenagers in the food court. So, anyway, we're just going to go ahead and get him. And Tellus is like, I'm pretty sure they said don't do that. And he's like, no, they told him not to fight him. We're going to extract him. So immediately you just see two panels of Alistair sitting there and then broken glass and Alistair not sitting there. And then it's like, hey, calm down. Alistair, hi, hey, look, humanity sucks. This whole place, it sucks. We get it. We know why you're pissed. But, like, why don't you talk to us, We are not your enemy. He's like, wait a minute. Hold on. I recognize you. You guys are Legion. You guys tried to stop me and attack me. And he's like, no, that's not us at all. And he's like, yeah, okay, well, anyway, I have power over my transformation now, so he can control his virus thing or whatever. Tellus makes a shield to protect from an explosion of energy. And when all the dust settles, we see that he absorbed some DNA that allows him to make 3 of himself, and they are all giant, towering super beasts. So that's the cliffhanger. Now that I'm actually able to follow what the hell is going on, like we're not just spouting off random crap, I'm liking it more. But it's still got problems of like all that narration from Dawnstar for 20 pages of like, oh, how I wish I was as free as my friends. Stop. I understand characters need character development. I get that. And best way to do that is to see what they're thinking. But that was annoying for 20 pages. Art is fine. I have no problem with that. It's doing a good job of keeping a sense of space and a sense of like who each character is. I'm not like mistaking anybody for anybody else. It really just comes down to I didn't know what was happening before. They didn't do a good job of explaining it. But now, whether just through the fact of I've been exposed to it long enough or they are doing a better job of writing, I at least understand it now, and I'm willing to give it credit based off of that. So I'm going to give this one a 6. Still not fantastic, still not blowing my hair back, but it is at least better than meh. It's okay. It's got its issues, but it's okay. And hopefully I can continue to understand whatever it is they do into the near future. Demon Knights number 4, written by Paul Cornell, art by Diogenes Neves and Michael Choi. Last issue we left off with the Horde approaching, and they took one of the little girls who was going to go get some help, and they cut off her head. And that was really, really, really messed up. This issue going to be a little bit fast to go through because it is literally just a Shining Knight intro. It's like, hey, you want to know what Shining Knight's up about? Cool. So we pick up. Shining Knight is shouting over the fence, I guess you want to call it, the gate. Like, how dare you? You're just a child. You will pay for this. I will kill every single one. And then Shining Knight just basically falls into a seizure. I forget the name of the other woman, but she catches her and is just like, oh, what's wrong with you, Shining Knight? And Shining Knight's like, oh, it's him. And then we see this whole vision quest thing of Merlin in this blank white space. And it's like, oh, I am Merlin. I live backwards. Blah, blah, blah. Anything. Understand this, Shining Knight. Your quest is for the Holy Grail. I'm not kidding. That is all a quest for the Holy Grail. And Shining Knight says, yes, it is. So then they say, okay, the Holy Grail, it was the grail that held Jesus' blood at the last dinner, and then, it was whatever. It is a record of everything. It is which can never be had. And then, they show the grail breaking, but it's not the real grail. I don't know. Then we see Shining Knight's origin. They were a young squire who was killed at the fall of Camelot, and they got a giant just spear through the chest. And Merlin came up and was like, "Oh, you know what? You've got something inside you. I can in your dead corpse. So I'm going to do this cool thing for you." And he pulls out the Grail and has them drink from it, which apparently gives Shining Knight eternal life. Comes back. Everyone around is already dead. Merlin is already on his way, and Shining Knight just rips out the spear and then begins their quest, just not even knowing what they were looking for. Along the way, they got a Pegasus, because that's just what they do. At one point, the Pegasus needed to feed in order to save its life. Shining Knight offered up their blood and therefore made the Pegasus also live super long because, sure, at some point they slept for long periods of time, including centuries, underneath the roots of the tree around which the world turns. I don't know if that's metaphorical or not, but then they had their first vision, which is this. This is their first vision, but this is also the other visions, because all the visions are happening at the same time, I guess. So anyway, they're like, oh, also your comrades are trying to get to you. And then we cut that back to the battlefield. Vandal Savage is like, hey, wakey, wakey. Everyone wakes up. Jason Blood comes forward and is like, hey, are you all right? And Shining Knight just barely lets out the little thing of Merlin, which of course Jason Blood has ties to, considering Merlin's the one that bound the demon to him. So he's like, hey, you talking to Merlin? Tell him to free me from my curse. Tell him to show his face. I'm gonna beat him up. What are you talking about in there? So then they get back to the vision quest and they're like, okay, so anyway, yeah, you alone can find the Grail because it's lost, and you have to fight your own inner demons and what have you, but you will find great sorrow and you will lose everyone you love, but you will be able to get to the Grail. Cool? Do you understand your quest? And Shining Knight's like, yep, sounds great. And then they show, all right, let me show you the last place I had the Grail, so that way you at least know where to begin looking. And there was some sort of storm or something, some magical lightning or whatever. And I don't even, I've read this page 3 times trying to figure out, and I genuinely can't figure out. He was just divine to do this, where he took the Grail he put the Grail into a container and then threw it into a volcano, down into some lava. And he's like, I was confident that I could find it within a decade or two. Oops. That's all it was. It just didn't work out. And he's like, all right, so now I need you to find the Grail. Your greatest tests are about to begin. But you will not be alone. You will have your friends, and you will be known as... And Shining Knight shoots awake and claims the Demon Knights. So, hey, title. We finally got there. And so they're just like, hey, so you woke up and said Demon Knights. Is that supposed to be our team name? And he's like, I don't know. Sure, I guess. It was just in the vision that I had. Meanwhile, they cut to a vision that the questing queen was also having for the Grail as well. And she's like, I had that vision again. I have to continue looking for the Grail. So maybe the questing queen had the same vision? It's a little unclear. So anyway, this all happened very quickly, apparently. The horde outside is still holding up the head of the killed child. And then the horsewoman comes up, just shoots like 3 arrows into this guy's hand and head, shoots him dead. Exaristos is like, well done, horsewoman. You are truly they will pay for their crimes and we will have our moment. And then horsewoman just turns around and shoots an arrow into Exaristos. And that's where we leave off the issue, with her stomach just exploding out blood. If the entire thing of Demon Knights is looking for the Holy Grail, or maybe looking for Merlin, I'm okay with this issue. If this is the mission statement for, okay, when we're done with this arc, this is what the book is about, I'm good with this issue, because it takes a long time to set it up, and it's like, all right, we never have to, you've gotten everything you need. We know where we're going for the Grail, where to start. We have the entire backstory on it. I'm good with it. But if this is literally just a one arc thing, and maybe not even like a full 6 issues, if this is just something where it's like, and then we gave up on the Grail, and then the Grail was inside us all along, it's actually friendship or whatever, I'm going to be so pissed off at this issue, because just feels like such a waste. Nothing happened. Character development for Shining Knight, okay, but that didn't need to be the entire issue. So if this was back, and again, I can't rate well enough off of that, so I'm going to assume that this is going to be the mission statement for the book moving forward. And with that assumption, I'm going to give this a 7. I still wish it did a little bit more of forwarding the plot outside the vision, but if we needed to have this happen, then it was a good way to do it, where it's all just one big vision quest. I'm fine with that. The art, also fantastic the whole way through. Never had any complaints about any of that. So yeah, 7. I really hope that we actually do focus on the Grail, though, because otherwise I'm going to be really pissed. Frankenstein, Agent of S.H.A.D.E. number 4, written by Geoff Lemire, art by Alberto Ponticelli. Left off last issue with Frankenstein and the mermaid going to fight some underwater giant monster, while Lady Frankenstein, the vampire, and the werewolf are fighting a giant ogre monster. And they also got a psychic message that the planet itself is screaming out for help. This issue does a recap on exactly what I just said, so I don't even know why I said it. But yeah, the team that is back at base, Palmer and Father Time, they talk to Frankenstein. They're like, hey, by the way, just got a psychic message from the planet. Apparently those 3 giant beasts that we were looking at killing, turns out they were parasites on the planet itself, and they were basically draining it dry. So yeah, basically just keep doing what we're doing, but now we're doing it in a way that you don't have to feel bad about killing things that might possibly be innocent, because they're not. And he's like, cool, awesome. So Frankenstein dives in the water, and so does Mermaid. Meanwhile, the other 3, Werewolf, Vampire, and Lady Frankenstein, are already up to their necks in just hell. Just all these monsters, just tearing them apart. Like, not actually, but they're barely managing to hold their own. And they're like, hey, we need some backup here, Father Time. And Father Time's like, the egg is the only thing that can go through and keep anything alive. So, no, we can't send anything else. And he's like, well, then don't send anything alive. Send something that's dead or whatever. And she's like, yeah, she makes a good point. Time to send the toy box. And Dr. Palmer's like, whoa, we haven't even tested the toy box yet. Father Time's like, now's as good a time as any. So we get the Frankenstein and Mermaid under the water. They come to this giant group of just sharp-toothed fish. And he's like, all right. Frankenstein pulls out his sword. Have at ye. And all the fish just immediately swim past him and start making their way to the mermaid. And it looks like they're about to kill her, and then they don't. Turns out that they all think that they're, like, the brood of the mermaid. Like, she's their mother. So, yeah, they just keep on swimming, and the fish just follow along behind. He's like, well, all right. I guess that works out. So we cut back. they're on their last stand in the ogre continent, and they're doing the countdown, sending the toy box, and there's a little text box here of like, oh, query, what is the toy box? Answer, classified, stop asking. So the toy box comes through the portal, it lands, and it causes this giant just boom as it hits because you used shrinking tech and it was growing as it came through. And it opens up, and what's inside but the GI robot squadron and 2 war wheels. What are those? War wheels are just giant mechanical wheels with huge spikes and lasers on them, and GI robot squadron is a bunch of robots that just shoot things. And meanwhile, the doctor, not Palmer but the other one, and Father Time are just sitting there with video game controllers controlling the war wheels through some screens. So through their actions, they finally manage to wake up the Titan, like the giant ogre, and that comes to life. Cut back to Frankenstein. They're swimming around. They're like, maybe the entirety of the oceans is a bit too much to search to find a single Titan. Like, what if we don't find it in time? And as if on cue, 2 giant yellow eyes open up, and they're like, all right, well, we found it. But hey, it's also not killing us. Like, it thinks that I'm, like, its bride. I could learn so much by studying this. And Frankenstein's like, well, tough, gotta kill it. Shink! And he stabs a sword into it. Meanwhile, Lady Frankenstein's like, all right, I got a plan to take out the ogre. You two, controlling the war wheel, drive it into its kneecaps when I say so. And then vampire, take werewolf, fly up to the eye of the ogre, and slash it out. Got it? And they're like, yeah, sure, what are you going to do? He's like, I'm going to stand here and look good. So they go through the plan, and vampire and werewolf just have a little banter back and forth. He's like, I feel like we should have a nickname for this, like the Furball Special or something. He's like, just shut up and throw me. So they scratch out its eyes. It plummets to the ground as the war wheels hits its kneecap, and then the GI squadron just takes them all out. And they're like, yeah, wow, yeah, okay, she does look good. She's doing a very good job at looking good. So they come back up to the surface, and they've taken out the fish, and the planet is now thanking them. It's like, oh boy, the planet's free and it's heading back out into dead space, but we got to get you guys through the portal because they only have 3 minutes to get back to the egg and back in the portal, so hurry it up. Meanwhile, the egg is being piloted by Khalees, the mummy who fell unconscious last issue. He's going to pick them all up. So he gathers up everybody, he gets them through into the egg. They wonder, like, hey, what do we do with the war wheel and the GI robots? And it's like, oh, we'll reprogram them and make sure no more parasites can come to the planet. And then they got the whole tense thing of the portal's closing, 5, 4, 3, and then it crashes through. They arrived, and Father Time's like, all right, good job. So, Frankenstein, what do you think? Not so bad having a team, right? And Frankenstein's like, they'll do. And, cue the sitcom music. Great job. That's where we end the issue. I like this. I really did. It was a bit breakneck of like, okay, we got to take care of this stuff super duper quick. But like they set it up so that it had to be breakneck, Like it was like, okay, the portal's closing. You got to move now. Hurry. Also, it's coming to Earth and all this like crazy stuff. It made sense that it just felt very frantic. Could all this stuff realistically be done in that period of time? I'm not going to worry about that because it's literally Frankenstein and all the other Universal monsters. So I'm good with that. I think this is a good like first arc for the team where it's like a planet-saving thing, but it's just still like quirky and weird enough so that it feels like it's their own. I definitely like that. Art-wise, it's good. I mean, it fits the tone of the book. It's got the scratchy feel to it. I wouldn't say that it's super easy to tell what's going on at any moment, but it's separate enough that I'm able to just figure it out. So overall, I'm going to give this a 7. It's a very solid read. I would definitely check it out. I'm looking forward to the continuing adventures and seeing what happens next to the team and Frankenstein as a whole. But as for a first arc, the planet and rescuing the life and all that, I liked it. It was definitely a good read. Resurrection Man number 4, written by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, art by Fernando Dagnino. Left off last issue with the body doubles finally sedating Mitch, having him cuffed and ready to go, and the transhuman showing up and ready to take out the body doubles. This issue picks up with just the fight scene. It is the body doubles going up against transhuman. They're firing off their guns, and it's just not landing at all. And then transhuman just exposits who he is. The old man that you see, he went and put on the suit he used to wear for work. Now he's a transhuman, and he's got bioseg ballistic shields. Okay, so anyway, the body double's like, man, this sucks. So they start loading in some special rounds, but transhuman fires off some lasers. Takes out one of them named Bonnie. I gotta be honest, I don't have their names memorized. They're just the body doubles in general. So they're like, wow, he's basically in awe. He's like, wow, where did you guys get tech like that? And he's like, I could ask you guys the same question. What do you got? Cyborg kit going on? Some enhanciles? I think they're just making up words here. And apparently he's transhuman. He's gene bonded Symborg upgrades. Sure, he's got something going on, and he says he's transhuman. He's whatever that means. So what are you guys? Because you're not human either. And they're like, oh, we're post-human. We're so much far beyond your crude junk. And she comes up, she punches transhuman, knocks him all the way out of the building. They continue their fight scene. He's pissed off that they broke his helmet. Meanwhile, Bonnie gets back up, walks over to Mitch, sees that he's still out. It's like, all right, I'm just going to call this in. It's like, yeah, we got Mitch, but there's a third party involved. Things are getting hairy. We just need to get out of here. And there's some, like, it's too messy, it's too risky to involve the matter hammer. So we're just going to do this the old-fashioned way and get him out by, like, a car or something. So as she's getting all the old people who've gathered around a shoe, Mitch gets up, grabs Bonnie by the throat, and it's like, hey, your drugs wore off, and I've still got my supersonic scream. So you're going to tell me everything I want to know. And she's like, oh, yeah, like you don't know who we are. And he's like, pretend I don't. And he's like, man, I used to respect you. You used to be cool. Why are you playing games? And she's like, I'm not. He's like, wait, why are you pretending you don't know us? He's like, I'm not. He's like, oh, wow, you're serious. You don't know who we are. Okay. Well, if you want to know, you can just come with us. And she's like, you were just trying to kill me. I was like, yeah, you've been like running away from us for a long time, and we figured that the only way to take you in is by killing you. Like, it gives us at least a little bit of a reprieve. But like, you taught us pretty much. Like, we learned everything we learned from you. So I promise you, if you just come with us, there will be no more violence. Answers to everything. Got it? And he's like, okay, all right, sounds good, but we got to stop your friend from killing Daryl. He's like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So then they run over the fight scene. He's like, hey, everyone, stop. I'm going with these two voluntarily. And they break it up for a second, but they're still bad-mouthing each other. He's like, I could kill you, old man. Oh, you can keep trying, though I like that you don't quit. I also like that ass doesn't quit. And she's like, oh, you son of a bitch. But anyway, they call back in, and he's like, yeah, we got him. He's coming in voluntarily. So send the car, I guess. And we cut over to the person that she's talking to, and it's this dude who's like just a zombie. He's just a zombie. He's got an exposed brain. He's got like flesh tearing. Like, he's just a zombie. But he's apparently also Director Hooker. So, yeah. So anyway, Daryl's like, are you serious? You're going along with these two? You don't even know him. He's like, I don't know you either. He's like, I told you I was a supervillain. So I was up front. By the way, I could really use your help, because I'm not actually an old dude in a suit. I'm 19. This suit is draining my life force, and I could really use some help here. That's why I made friends with your dad, Mitch. And Mitch is like, okay, Daryl's coming with us. And the body devil's like, no, absolutely not. Non-negotiable. And at that moment, the angel from the earlier issue shows up, and she's like, psh, everything's negotiable. And it's like, crap, it's her. This is about to get to an entirely new level of crazy. And she's like, oh, no, I'm just here to collect you, nothing else. And he's like, well, you're not going to collect me. They're already collecting me. It's like, no, I am going to collect you. Everything's negotiable. And goes over and just like explains, like, oh, like this guy who's given up his life force in order to get some power. Or these guys who have done God knows what to their bodies in order to become sociopathic military collectors or whatever. Or you, who literally is able to skip death and has built up such a debt in heaven and hell that I'm the one who's sent to collect. And so Mitch just lets out a supersonic scream, and she's like, okay, yeah, all right, that hurt. Don't do that again. And he does it again. He's like, all right, stop it. You're pissing me off now. And he screams again. And she unleashes some level of hellfire or angel dust or whatever you want to call it, and literally disintegrates the Resurrection Man. Literally disintegrates Mitch Shelley. And he's like, oops, I think I might have just killed the unkillable. That's going to be some paperwork. And that's where we leave off. I still like this book. I still really do. I never thought I would, but it's got a good story here. It's really laying out, like, okay, we're getting some answers, maybe, eventually. Like, he's supposed to go get answers with the body doubles, but that doesn't seem to work. And then Daryl is a 19-year-old who's having his life force. Like, it's just throwing up so many things of, like, okay, well, now this thing happened, but it's done in a way that feels genuine and is fun. That's the thing. It's fun. I'm having fun with this book. The art is also fantastic. I have nothing bad to say about that at all. Fernando Dagnino does a fantastic job. So I'm going to give this one a 7.5. It's only getting better over time. I mean, I say that. I can't remember what I scored the previous ones, but it feels like it's only getting better over time. And I'm looking forward to see how this does resolve. I'm sure it doesn't feel like the sort of thing that once the arc is done that all the loose ends are going to be tied up, but I want to see, like, what loose ends do get tied up, you know? What are the mysteries that are going to be the long-term ones, and which ones are going to be the, okay, we're wrapping that up for now. And I'm just looking forward to the next issue in general. My Greatest Adventure number 3, the anthology book of Robot Man, Garbage Man, and Tenga. So let's just jump right into it. Robot Man, last issue had him approaching a village and coming across a giant robot snake that he got eaten by. This issue picks up. He's like, you know what? My body, my robot body, kind of incredible, because as long as I think it and it's possible, my body pretty much just does it. So like in this instance, I think, hey, I'm going to heat my body up to 10,000 degrees and then just walk through the snake. And it happens. So then he looks out to the sea and he's like, all right, well, I guess I got to head over that way. He flies off. His body's pretty damaged, so it crashes more into like a building or two before it hits the ocean. He talks about how there was stuff on the net about him, and he's already have it scrubbed off with his robo powers. So he uses his eating up of waste or whatever to power himself down on the ocean floor, and when he pops back out, he approaches the island where I guess he was found or made or existed or whatever. By the way, there's a passing comment in here about him leaving his previous team, whatever that's about. So he comes out of the island and he does some looking around, and he's like, okay, there's a bird with some nanites in its eyes. There's a gecko that calls itself Bob. There's a butterfly that has a QR code on its wings. And there's something huge behind that mountain. Oh, hey, there's Maddie. So it goes over, talks to Maddie, and it's like, well, he starts making his way over to Maddie. He's stopped by some gorillas that end up just being gorillas. Like, there's nothing special about them. And then he comes across Maddie and is like, hey, all right, good to see you walking. So we trace the anomaly to behind the big, scary volcano over there that has clear skulls in it. It's like, cool, let's fly over. So it picks up Maddie, flies over, mentions offhandedly that her heart rate and pheromone levels are up, so something there. But as they're flying, a giant rock just comes flying at them. They fall out of the sky. Robot Man manages to save them, but then they see, like, okay, what's this that we're dealing with? And it's some giant cybernetic beast of some sort. I don't know how to describe it. Like, a gecko meets a gorilla, and then 4 times as big, I guess. And that's where we leave off there. By the way, that was Aaron Lopresti writing. Sorry, Matt Kint writing, and Scott Collins on art. I give that a 6. That's fine. It's not really doing anything. It just feels like, okay, and we're continuing on the story. Next up, we have Garbage Man. This one is by Aaron Lopresti, both art and written. We left off last issue with Batman encountering Garbage Man. And this issue just picks up with just a fight where Garbage Man's like, hey, I'm not your enemy. But Batman throws a punch. Garbage Man gets pissed. He throws a punch back. Batman pretends to be knocked out for a second, so Garbage Man approaches, and he throws a kick at Garbage Man. And Batman, but like he's walking up, he's like, "Are you okay, Batman?" And Batman's like, "That's the first time I've had an opponent ask if I'm okay." So they actually start talking, and he's like, "Hey, what do you know about the Titan Research Facility?" He's like, "Plenty." "What do you know about a guy named Richard Morse?" "Plenty." "That's me." So then they start talking. We cut over to the Reverend, who's like, "Oh, hey, hello everybody, I'm here to help, blah, blah, blah." And then this guy comes up and he's like, "Reverend, you got to help me. I can't go to sleep." And he's like, "Why not?" And he's like, "It's dangerous. I just can't sleep." And he's like, "Is someone after you?" He's like, "No, if I go to sleep, the monsters come out. You got to keep me awake." We cut back to Garbage Man real quick, just wrapping up his story of, corporate terribleness. And Batman's like, "Yeah, all right, that all tracks. Your story makes sense. And, yeah, seems like a good way to go." He's like, cool. So can you help me? And he's like, "Don't know. I'm going to need a sample, and I'm going to need some time." And he's like, "Okay, well, do you know if I'm toxic?" And he's like, "Well, your colorful splotches, yeah, those are probably super toxic. The rest of you is probably, it's not irradiated, so just don't have prolonged contact with anything." He's like, "All right, sounds good." And he's like, "What should I do for now?" And Batman's like, "Just go hang out with the Reverend, and I'll get back in touch with you." He's like, "How do you know about the Reverend?" He's like, "I'm Batman." And Batman's away. Cut over to Titan Pharmaceuticals. They're like, "Okay, so Haden is a guy on the legal team." He's like, "It seems like he's getting cold feet and he might be backing out. We're going to have to take care of that problem." And that just lasts for a whole page of them just speaking in like, "We might need our own legal team soon and make sure that he's well taken care of." So then it's Garbage Man back down the sewers, and he's like, "All right, just gotta hang out here, relax until Batman finds some answers. Maybe the Reverend can help me, and maybe I could help some of the people around here." Meanwhile, the people are all running through the sewers in the opposite direction. The Reverend goes flying past Garbage Man, and he's like, "Garbage Man, run." And then this weird spiked tail comes out, whacks Garbage Man in the face. He's like, "How am I supposed to fight what I can't see in this dark sewer?" And he's like, "Wait a minute, does toxic mean flammable?" He gets a lighter from the Reverend and lights up like his arm and then throws part of it into the darkness, which reveals this giant lizard dinosaur beast thing that he has to fight. And yeah, that's that. By the way, toxic does not mean flammable. He just got lucky with that. And then number 3, we have Tenga, written and art by Kevin McGuire. Left off last issue with them going to find some guy who may know where these giant monsters on this planet are coming from. And this is just 2 pages of nothing but expository. So this guy, he's studying the monsters. He's able to figure out, like, they're definitely not related to Tenga's appearance. They're something else entirely. The king, the blue guy from the first issue, his name is Za, and he is apparently fighting off the monsters. This has been going on for like 6 cycles. I don't know what that means. And they don't like that he's investigating the monsters, and they're trying to get him killed or something like that. And they're like, "Okay, but I'm so low on energy here that I can't get a good reading." So then Tenga just reaches over, powers up his battery with her own internal energy source. And he's like, "Wow, that's awesome. You should let me probe you sometime." She's like, "Buy me dinner first." So then they're all like, "Wait a minute, hold on. My readings are saying that there's a monster coming through right now." And he's like, "Oh, cool. Can you tell me where?" And he's like, yes, no. Like, he's using all these directions that she doesn't understand. But in the end, he just gives her an in-ear communicator and just directs her in the direction to go. So she zooms off, speed of light, sound, whatever. She gets like pretty much the entire way around the planet to this desert area, and she sees this portal opening up, and it looks like it has a beak coming through it. And she's like, "Oh, it looks like it's another flying creature." And then as it comes out, it turns out that it was actually like the toenail of this massive blue whale-looking alien thing that's just hanging out in this desert. And she's like, "I don't know if I can do anything here, guys." And they're like, "Why?" It's like, "This is literally the biggest thing I've ever seen that's not a planet." And like, "How big is it?" And it's just big. I don't know what you... So she thinks she sees a vulnerable spot. She zaps it, and it's just pissed off now. And she's like, "Oh no, it's heading for the village." And then she's hit by an energy blast. And she's like, what the hell? What? Just hit me with an energy blast. And as it turns out, it's that blue guy, Za, from issue 1. And he's like, Tanga, I'm going to beat this monster. So declares Za. And Tanga's like, God damn it, Za. And that's where the issue ends off. I didn't rate Garbage Man. Garbage Man, real quick, I'm going to go ahead and give a 6.5. Just a 6. I wanted to give it extra, but honestly, it's just another issue. It's the same as Robot Man, honestly. For Tanga, I'm going to go ahead and give this one, I know I've been very critical of Tanga, but I am going to give this one a 5.5 just because, despite the fact that 2 pages in this book took me, no joke, 5 minutes to read through because of just how densely written it was, at least I know what's happening. That's all I've been asking for like 3 months now. I know what's happening in Tanga. Thank you. But you get a 5.5 because it could have been done better. So yeah, that is My Greatest Adventure, number 3. It's only 6 issues. We'll get to the end eventually. The S.H.A.D.E, issue 3, written by James Robinson, art by Cully Hamner. We left off last issue with S.H.A.D.E making a deal or something with a guy named Von Hamner, who basically said, all right, the Caldicots are after your blood or something. He sent Von Hamner to England in order to deal with that, and for some reason S.H.A.D.E was going to Australia. We pick up with him reminiscing about his first time to Australia back in 1874 and how it was nice and quiet and calm and nothing was as crazy as it was this time. And we flash to this time, and as he arrives, he's been met by a bunch of hoverbike riding, gun wielding crazy people, and he was provided help with a local hero named the Argonaut. I want to go more in detail, but the scene literally just ends after this page, and then we don't find out anything about the Argonaut or the things. So, it happened. So he's talking to, I think it's the local mayor, the chief inspector, who I guess he's friends with in some regard. And he offers up the Caldecott, Darnell Caldecott, who changed his name to John Cross and lives way out in the center of Australia in a place called Alice Springs, up on a mountain. And apparently, it's not guarded by a lot of people. It's only guarded by one lizard god, who in the belief system of the Arrernte, I butchered that, but regardless, of the native people there, is basically the creator of humanity for their belief system. So it's going to take a hell of a lot of power in order to defeat the lizard god and get into Darnell Caldecott's place. So S.H.A.D.E asks, okay, well, if I need some help, then I need to find a man by the name of Diablo Blacksmith. And apparently, back in the day, S.H.A.D.E came to Australia for a jewelry robbery. And Diablo Blacksmith acted as a vigilante. He was a magician, and he wasn't great at the magic, but he's very cunning and very deductive. So he did not get off on the best of terms with S.H.A.D.E, but he comes asking for advice, and Diablo basically offers it up. He's like, look, if you want to be able to take on the lizard god, if you want to be able to take on, his name is Mangar Kunja. If you want to be able to take on the lizard god, you're going to have to become in oneness with Dreamtime. And apparently that's just an important thing to his people. He's from that same native people who believe in the lizard god. And it's just I'm looking for where he describes what it is. Doesn't really say, but it's just a feeling of, one with the world and one with the soul and nature and all that stuff. Just, a oneness. And S.H.A.D.E's like, well, I don't have a soul, so that's not really going to work for me. So he's like, oh, but you're on a journey of change, and it's very important. I can see that within you, and you need to really stick to your path. Otherwise, people around you are going to get hurt. And Shade's like, well, can't have that. So he goes to Alice Springs. He goes to the place where Darnell is holed up in. And he gives a nice little history about Alice Springs here, of all the things that were there. And then he's like, all right, but none of that matters because I'm literally fighting a giant lizard god. He was a bit underestimated of the size of it, and also the fact that basically nothing that S.H.A.D.E does seems to have any effect on it. It also has a special power of knives and fire. That's its main two things. So he's talking to it, and he's basically just trying to convince it like, hey, I'm not a threat. I'm not here to hurt Darnell Caldecott. I just want to talk, and I'm not here to hurt you either. But he's like, but there is a great evil in you, and da-da-da-da-da. And they basically just go back and forth while fighting the whole time. And he keeps trying to reason with it, being like, look, I know that you think I'm bad, and I was bad. I mean, I was really bad, but now I'm good, so... But the lizard god is just like, nope, don't care. Doesn't matter. No matter what you say, your words are meaningless. Until finally it gets to the point where S.H.A.D.E clicks, and he remembers the thing about Dreamtime, and he's like, wait a minute, it's the oneness or whatever. It's the eternal spirit. So he allows himself to like enter the dream time or let it take hold of him some way. And he uses his shadow powers to create a giant swan, which shows the lizard god that it's not an act of aggression, it's an act of faith, of that he is able to be good. And the lizard god takes a moment and he looks into the path that S.H.A.D.E has taken of both good and evil, and he's like, you are evil, but you are also good. You may enter. And he opens up the giant doors for S.H.A.D.E. And S.H.A.D.E, as he's walking up this staircase to go see Darnell, he's like, I'm nervous. And I don't know why I'm nervous, because we've met before. But still, it's a long time ago. And he walks in, and he sees Darnell, and he says, hello. And lying in bed, hooked up to all these machines, is this old, dying man, Darnell, who responds to S.H.A.D.E, hello, grandfather. And that's where we leave off. Darnell Caldecott is S.H.A.D.E's grandson. So, yeah, this one felt like much more straightforward than any previous issue before it. Mainly because it just followed the one plot. And it may have been a very superpower plot. It was more about just, the oneness of Dreamtime and da-da-da, all that sort of spiritual stuff. But it was still just a solid understanding of here we are, point A to point B. And I like that. I like that just so I can get a handle on, okay, what are we doing right now? And this whole thing was just to get to Caldecott. And I like that. It's very solid. As such, though, I'm not sure how much it actually is like forwarding the plot, because theoretically this whole issue could have just been he arrives in Australia and talks to Caldecott. All the stuff about the lizard god, I guess you could consider character development, but it's limited. It's very whatever. But no, art-wise, it's fantastic. I do love the way the writing handles S.H.A.D.E. Like, I'm not doing a good job of showing just how good of a speaker he is. He is a very well-spoken man. And so is pretty much everyone he talks to. It's very well written. I'm going to go ahead and give this one a 7.5. I really do like this series. I think I'd like it more if I read the stuff that came before it, like S.H.A.D.E and Starman, I believe it was. But as it stands, this is very good on its own, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing where it goes. The Ray, #1, written by Justin Gray and Jimmy Palmiotti, art by Jamal Igle. Miniseries about the Ray, a light-powered superhero. So, yeah, let's just jump into it. We pick up with the Ray. He's already got his powers, and we're going to do that whole going back thing. He's fighting off some giant telepathic jellyfish that are in the city. I believe it's San Diego. I believe that's where this all takes place. But anyway, he's fighting them, and he's like, for the record, I never called myself the Ray. That was the media, because South Korean American doesn't sound nearly as punchy. So Anyway, he's just constant. He's going off with your typical sort of like California, like, man, you wouldn't believe the kind of stuff I've been through sort of tone. But anyway, we go back and we see his origin story. Apparently, the military were firing off some huge, like, solar energy powered gun called like a sun gun. An accident, of course, happened, and it's fired off, and everything that's in its like path was imbued with some mutated energy. So like there's a thing of a giant tree growing here and a giant horned lizard wreaking havoc on the interstate. And then finally, 237 miles away, we have Lucian, who is just a lifeguard down at the beach, and he's like, well, yeah, ladies, it is kind of tough being a... And then he just explodes in a flash of light. Everything's burned. His buddy, Darius, tries to run up and rescue him. He runs up to the lifeguard stand. But standing there is Lucian, and he's like, I had no idea what happened, but I know that I felt really, really good. Also naked. They really focus on the naked bit, like, a lot in this issue. But he goes to take a step forward, and he's just off faster than the speed of light. They actually say faster than the speed of light. And he's just like, before he can process anything that's even happening, he's just afraid that he's going to shoot off into space and die up there. Eventually, he relaxes because he realizes, like, there's nothing he can do, and he comes to a crash landing. He walks up to two people and is like, hey, where am I? I'm like, you're on Earth. He's like, yeah, but, like, where? He's like, you're in Seattle? Are you an alien? He's like, no, I'm from California. Cool, you're naked. Ah, geez. And he just stays naked for the rest of the book. We'll get there. So he has to use one of the people's phone. He calls Darius and is like, hey, I'm in Seattle. I don't know how that happened, but I've got an idea. So he hands back the phone, and then apparently his brain is also working at light speed as well. So he's able to figure out that he's probably like, light, and he's able to ride the reflections and the light around him. Sure. And he makes his way back to California down the I-5. Then we cut to his parents, who are apparently adoptive parents, are like super hippie, vegan, like yoga, all that stuff. And they're just like, cool. Why are you still naked? He's like, well, every time I go to put on clothes, they burn off me. I literally can't like wear anything. And they're like, you should call the Flash. I bet he has the same problem. It's like, nope, Mom, I don't have the Flash's number. What's even happening to me? And Darius is like, if you guys had a TV, you'd know this is like the sun gun thing. Like, that's what happened. So probably might want to talk to one of those military guys. We cut back to the present. He's still battling the jellyfish, but he's talking about... It's literally an entire page of him talking about, like, here's how I managed to eventually get this costume you're seeing of, like, purple and white by bending light. But don't be mistaken, dear viewer, I'm still completely naked. Yep. So then we see his girlfriend came to visit, like, a week later, and it's like, hey, haven't seen you in a while. Everything okay? Are you seeing someone else? And he's like, no, totally not. He's, like, looking through the door crack. It's like, cool, I'm coming in because I got tickets for some premiere for a movie. And he's like, all right. And he opens up the door, and he's just standing there naked with a dinner plate in front of him. He's like, you're glowing. You are actually glowing. And he explains, well, actually his mom explains to her exactly what happened. And she's like, you should go to the emergency room or see a doctor or something. What if you're radioactive? And she's like, well, we checked that. My dad has a Geiger counter. I'm not radioactive. And I feel great. Everything's fine. And I'm not nearly glowing as much. I think I'm powered up by, like, the sun. So it's not as bad as night. And she's like, okay, look, I'm not going to leave you. I still love you. Go to the doctor. And she goes off and does her own thing. She also apparently has really strict parents, which is going to come into play later. So then we cut back to the jellyfish thing. He has an idea as to how to beat them. And he says that his parents actually really helped him out because they suggested a good way to focus his powers and learn how to control them is yoga. And I don't actually know what he does with the jellyfish because he says he doesn't want to kill them. He just wants to relocate them. And somehow he did that. It's not really explained. But yeah, apparently yoga is what helped him really refine his power. So he's doing okay with the girlfriend. He's going to go meet her parents soon. He still has to have his job at the lifeguard stand, but Darius covers for him whenever need be. And things are kind of just looking up, but, now he's a superhero with his own crazy life in the background. Then we cut over to a completely different thing of, I think, a professor. He's in, like, a warehouse, and he's showing basically this, like, banned footage from Hollywood of this director who went out to the jungles, got in contact with some, like, uncontacted tribes, and did some really screwed up stuff like cannibalism and sacrificial rituals, and caught them all on film. And they're like, all right, all of this stuff has been totally banned. And he went out and he tried to record just the worst of the worst of the worst, like the true suffering of humanity. But then one time he went out and he died when he was out looking for a Lazarus pit. And they sent out a detective in order to find him. Detective came across the tribe that he was supposedly at. They showed that they killed him and had a tiny little shrunken head. But the tribe did provide the detective with the last reel of footage, which supposedly contained the footage of this man's death. And it has never been seen until today, because this professor has it, and he's showing it to these 3 random kids in this warehouse. And they start up the footage, and it is the guy. He is, I'll get his actual name here in a second. Fillmore, I believe, is his last name. Thaddeus Fillmore. He is in front of the Lazarus pit. He gets his throat slit, and they're like, oh my God, this is real. Oh, geez, I can't believe it. Turn it off, turn it off. And as they go to turn it off, a voice comes from the screen saying, no, there is no stopping it. And Thaddeus Fillmore appears in front of them, like in the room. And he's like, there's no stopping my comeback, and I'm going to take this town by storm. And the professor's like, that's impossible. And he just punches his fist through the professor's face. And he's like, the world is my movie and you're all my extras. And that's where we're leaving off. An interesting first issue. I've never seen a superhero comic so focused on the fact of, like, I'm naked under this. Like, it's a little weird in a lot of ways, but hey, you do you. There's nothing in it that I particularly dislike. It just doesn't feel like, it feels like they really, and even in the narration, they really just don't want to do the origin. They're like, look, I know that we are, like, obliged to tell you how he got his powers, but we really just kind of want to get to the story part because we've only got 4 issues to do this in. This is one of 4, so I can feel like they were really just like, okay, yep, he's got a girlfriend. The girlfriend's okay with it. He knows how his powers work. We're just establishing all this so that in issue 2 we don't have to deal with it at all. I'm fine with that. It just moved very quickly because of it. I'm going to give this one a 6.5. It's good. I like what it's setting up. He's a different kind of hero from anything else that's really going on in the universe right now. But yeah, it's just an interesting read so far. The villain certainly is something. We'll see what comes of him. But for this particular issue, 6.5. See what comes out next month. And that's it. That's all the comics that came out from DC Comics this December 14th, 2011. But like I said at the beginning of the episode, I had to go through 16 of them, and I am way over on my allotted time slot. So I'm just going to tell you what comes out next week, get through the contractual obligations, and we will call it a night. Okay. December 21st, 2011 holds the number 4 issues of Batman, Birds of Prey, Catwoman, Nightwing, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Supergirl, Green Lantern Corps, Captain Atom, DC Universe Presents, Justice League, Wonder Woman, Blue Beetle, and Legion of Superheroes. Notice that's only 13 comics as opposed to the 16. You think they could have balanced that out a little bit better, but I guess I'm the only one doing this stupid little task. So if you have any thoughts on the comics that I talked about this week, the comics I'm going to be talking about next week, or any comic I'm ever going to be talking about ever, go ahead and hit me up on Twitter. I am at DC Comics Podcast. That is at DC Comics Podcast, all one word. Use the hashtag New52, or else I'll be put in the tiny cage and they won't feed me until next week's episode. Additionally, we have a Patreon you can get some bonus content from, not from me, but from many other people in the Mild Fuzz Network, and that is Mild Fuzz TV on Patreon. All one word, Mild Fuzz TV. But so I don't repeat myself and so I don't waste any more time, I'm just going to go ahead and say, always remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.